The best of downtown from 7 to 8 a.m. on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and 929theticket.com. This is the best of downtown.
It sure is. Welcome in Sunday morning, June number 8. The best of downtown, a previously recorded edition of the program. Rich Kimball, Brian Stackpole, here with you on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket, 929theticket.com. And for the next hour, we'll revisit some of our best conversations from the past week, including NBA head coach Rick Carlisle of the Dallas Mavericks, Andy Gresh, Comcast Sportsnet, talking Patriots and other Boston sports with us, Bob Walsh, the new Maine men's basketball coach, Patriots talk from Tim Whelan of the Metro West Daily News, and a little Celtics inside information from Comcast Kyle Draper as well, coming up between now and 8 a.m. here on 92.9. By the way, follow us on Twitter at Downtown Rich K, the Facebook page Downtown with Rich Kimball. Like it if you are so inclined. We would be most appreciative. All right, I want to kick things off this morning. A great conversation on Thursday. Former Maine Black Bear, who's had a terrific career as both a player and a coach in the NBA. He's one of only 11 guys who've won a championship as both a player and a coach. 12 years in the NBA, just one losing season for Rick Carlisle, the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. His team extended the San Antonio Spurs to 7 games in the opening round of the playoffs this year. And we asked Rick Carlisle what would be the key to stopping the Spurs.
Well, you gotta do a lot of things because they're very well balanced. They got a lot of guys that can hurt you. They have 3 great players in Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, who are going to be Hall of Famers that are still playing at an amazingly high level. Parker's only 30, I think, but, Ginobili and Duncan are well. I think Duncan's 37 or 30, going to be 38, and Ginobili's 35 or 36. And they're all still great. And they're all great playmakers, and around them they have a bunch of guys that go hard and fit well into their system. And they're a great three-point shooting team, and they got an emerging star in Kawhi Leonard. So, they're a team that's it's difficult to game plan for them because they can hurt you in transition, they can hurt you in pick and rolls, they can hurt you in the post, they can hurt you with drive and kick. It's not just one thing that you have to take away from them. You have to limit them in a lot of different areas. And so it's tough. It's tough playing them.
As you look at these two teams, do you feel like one team has any kind of a matchup advantage?
Well, the rosters are they're contrasting rosters, so it really sets up to be a very interesting and compelling series. San Antonio's team is built more on strength in numbers and a certain balance that they strike with their better players and their role players. And then, you got LeBron James, who's, the best all-around player in the world right now, really without question. And then they got Bosh and they got Wade. So they got 3 guys that are, max salary players. And they have, the best player in the world. And they too are well built with role players that fit in well with their stars, and both teams are very lethal from the 3-point line. So, who's making more threes and who can prevent the other team from getting quality looks at 3 will be, big factors. And then rebounding is going to be interesting. Neither one of these teams are great rebounding teams, but that's where you gain an advantage because the more you get, the more possessions of the ball you have that the other team does not have.
Your team this year had some challenges with a lot of new faces. I think you started the season with 9 new players on the roster. What did you learn about the Mavericks and this group as you went on?
Well, we learned a lot in a short period of time early. We had a pretty good feel for the kind of team we thought we had. And there really weren't any big surprises. I mean, we felt we were going to be a very good offensive team, and our challenges were going to be able to guard the real potent teams defensively and being consistent in that area because we don't have the most physical roster. But the guys did a great job, and we played. I mean, the last 30 games, they were all big games because we basically made the playoffs by one game at the end of the year, and so there was a lot going on, and extremely competitive, and I see the league becoming more and more competitive as the effects of the most recent collective bargaining agreement take hold. With teams really having a finite amount of money that they can spend. So it's an exciting time for the league, and it's an exciting time to be involved in the league, but it's extremely competitive.
We're talking with Rick Carlisle, head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. Is it good for the league to have this Donald Sterling situation behind them as quickly as possible? Yeah,
and it was resolved very quickly and handled extremely well. So, we now move on to other chapters.
Speaking of owners, you've seemingly had a great experience working with Mark Cuban. What's that relationship like?
Well, it's been great for me and my family. Dallas has been one of the best places that we've lived. Mark is an ideal boss because he really allows you to do your job. He's a great communicator. He puts a high priority on, making sure that all of his people that are, leaders and directors within his organizations have the tools for success. It starts with having good players and then a whole host of other things. But he's become a great friend, and he's been a mentor to me. And so, I cherish our relationship, and I'm going to keep busting my butt to do a good job for him because, he's given me a great opportunity in Dallas.
We look around the league, and like I said, we still think of you as a Black Bear here. We see Jimmy Boylan on the bench at San Antonio, and then see a couple of Maine natives with Steve Clifford and Brent Brown as head coaches. A little Maine pride there. Do you share in that as a Black Bear?
Absolutely. And, I'm really happy for Steve and Brett in particular because, those guys have been long-time assistant coaches and very, very highly thought of, as hard workers and knowledgeable guys and people, that had great personalities in our league. And sometimes it takes a long time to get an opportunity, but they both did a terrific job this year. I thought Brett Brown in particular, with their roster situation and, they seemingly were breaking up the team, day by day during the season, but we played 2 games against them, and there was not anybody in the league that coached harder or better than Brett Brown. And Steve Clifford was, he was one of the guys up for Coach of the Year and very easily could have gotten it. So, and Jimmy Boylan, I know him well. When he was at Maine, I actually saw him play a couple times. I was playing with the Celtics at the time, and so we've maintained a friendship for a lot of years now. So, yeah, I'm waiting to see which next Maine person is going to get into the NBA, and I'll be excited to see it.
What do you remember best about your days with the Black Bears, Rick?
Well, it was a fantastic opportunity for me because, I had gone to a postgraduate year of prep school in New England because I didn't get heavily recruited in high school. My goal was to be a Division I player, but there really were no offers except the University of Maine. I mean, they took a chance on me. Skip Chappelle and Peter Gavitt, gave me an opportunity, and I got a lot better as a player when I was up there. Made the decision to transfer and try to play at the ACC level, and luckily for me, things really fell into place, but a lot of it was because of my experience at Maine, and there are a lot of great people up there that I still know. So, the memories are fond. I played with some terrific players. Rufus Harris is still one of the best players I've ever played with. Jeff Cross ended up playing briefly in the NBA. He was a guy that was there my second year as a freshman. And, it's just it's a great place up there, and I miss it. I don't get back very often, but whenever I do, I always look forward to it.
Now, Bob Lucy broadcasts Maine football games with me and joins us on the show here on Fridays. He tells me that maybe a lot of people don't know this, that in addition to your basketball skills, you're a heck of a piano player.
Well, I do play, and I started learning how to play when I was at the University of Maine, and And when I left Maine, I had to sit out a year because of the transfer rules. And so one of the things I did to kind of keep myself distracted and busy was, I learned how to play. And I did it the hard way and the wrong way. I did it kind of by teaching myself, which I would never suggest this to anybody to try to do that. But, I stayed with it, and I still play a fair amount. And I've got a 10-year-old daughter now, and she started to play. So, it's been a great thing for me.
And that was Dallas Mavericks head coach Rick Carlisle from earlier in the week on Downtown with Rich Kimball, talking about the NBA playoffs, his time coaching the Dallas Mavericks, and also his time playing collegiate basketball at the University of Maine. You're listening to the Best of Downtown here for the 6th day of June 2014. Glad to have you alongside us this early morning on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We'll take our first break in the program, and on the other side, we'll hear from our good friend Andy Gresh of 98.5 The Sports Hub and the Patriots Radio Network here in just a moment. You're listening to Downtown, the best of edition here on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket.
Sunday morning Best of Downtown program. You're listening to Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. We can be heard around the world at 929theticket.com. Well, we had a chance to catch up with our good friend Andy Gresh this week on 98.5, the Sports Hub in Boston, Comcast, the Patriots Radio Network. Talked all kinds of Boston sports, but, of course, a lot of buzz this week at the Patriots. The story that everybody was discussing, whether or not Tom Brady was still an elite quarterback. And Gresh, as you might expect, had a lot to say about that.
Oh, my God. Well, look, if you want to make the argument that Tom Brady is not top 3, hey, there's wiggle room there. I can listen to that because, I have Brady, for me, 3rd. I still have him above Drew Brees, but Aaron Rodgers operates at a pretty damn high level. And Peyton Manning right now, with the weapons around him and the offense that's tailored to him, he's done a great job coming back from the neck surgery. To say that he's not top 5 is absolutely ridiculous. And Rich, some of the stuff that I quibbled with was there are football plays that any coach will tell you that don't show up on the stat sheet. And I know they calculated the completion percentage for, drops and throwaways and stuff like that. But I'll just give you this one. Okay, Patriots are up, let's say, 4 points. They're around midfield, 3 minutes to go. The other team has a timeout. It's 3rd and 10. Tom Brady eats the ball and takes a sack because no one is open. Opposing teams got to burn their timeout. Patriots punt, and they make them go 85 yards the length of the field, and you bank on your defense to try to win the game. Now, to the nerd that put that together for Pro Football Focus, it allows him to say, well, look at what happened. Brady didn't make a play, but that's a smart football play. And I think that, we looked it up today. I'll give you a nugget. Here you go. The Denver Broncos, in their 16 games this year, Rich, in half of the games, they had a 10 or more point lead in the first half in half of those games, including against the Patriots, and that's the only one that they lost. Now, you know as well as I do, you're an offense, or more importantly, you're a defense, and you're down 14-0, you can't blitz. You can't start to get after people like that. So your pressure, I think, is dictated, quite honestly, on the score of the game. So you've got to tread lightly in terms of looking at pressure and statistics like that, because there's more to take into account than just completion percentage.
Absolutely. What do you make of this visit by Jermichael Finley?
Honestly, I think it's a whole lot of nothing. I think they kick the tires. I think they try to see how he's doing physically. I think they look at it and say, all right, let's bring him in. Let's see if he's going to, want any money. I honestly think, I think the insurance policy kind of helps the agent in negotiating, because if he can find somebody who's going to clear the player, and if he can find somebody who's going to say, okay, we'll take him, then the agent's going to turn around and say, well, I get an insurance policy here for $10 million, so the contract's got to start there, to which I say, go pound sand, buddy. We're talking about a guy coming back from a major neck injury. So I think they're kicking the tires, Rich. I don't think there's anything to it. I do think they are looking for a tight end because there are two spots where they need depth. It's tight end and it's linebacker. When you look at the linebackers, they got three good starters, but they really don't have any depth there. So I think they're still going to look to make some roster tweaks. I'm just not one who thinks that Jermichael Finley is the way to go.
Andy Gresh of the Sports Hub with us here on Downtown. Kevin Love, is he coming to Boston? Is it a done deal already?
I'm sorry, what was it? You know what? I went into the studio here at Comcast, and they left a speaker on because they're doing an interview in the other studio. So hang on a second. Let me walk out. I blame Tangway. Now, what was that again? I'm sorry, Rich.
Kevin Love, is it a done deal? Is he coming to Boston?
No, I don't think it's a done deal by any stretch. But look at it this way: who's going to be able to offer 4 first-round picks? And here's the conundrum as I see it, Rich. If you were a Minnesota Timberwolves fan and Flip Saunders, the best player again, and traded them to the Boston Celtics again for a bunch of promise, what's the point? What are we doing here? So I think there's a little pressure on Flip Saunders to get something sexy for this particular player. And Kevin Love he's in the Hall of Really Good. I don't know if he's a franchise-changing player, but that said, I think if you're the Celtics, you've really got to consider trying to make this deal and get it done because it's better to overpay for something that will re-energize the fans here as opposed to selling me on a kid from Duke or Kentucky or, Dante Exum or the big guy, Joel Embiid or something like that. I think people here, they want to win right away because all the other teams are winning. But I don't think it's a done deal by any stretch. And, if you're Rajon Rondo, you're really paying attention to what's going on because if they can't get a deal done for Kevin Love, I think the Celtics are going to have to stop and think long and hard. What are we going to do with Rondo? And if they get the sense days before the draft, in my opinion, that Kevin Love isn't going to come here, then I think you got to start to call around and see how many people are interested in Rajon Rondo because he's just going to walk at the end of the year anyway. So
if you're Danny Ainge, do you keep Rondo around as part of this rebuilding process?
Yeah, I think if Love comes here, absolutely. But if not, no. I mean, if Love ain't coming here, then I personally am going to look to move Rondo and try to continue to acquire assets and see if I can get maybe a young player who's toiling away. Rich, if we go all the way back 10, 11 years ago when, you just came out of the Patino run and you had Jimmy O'Brien here and they started chucking threes all over the place. Remember who they traded away? It was Joe Johnson.
Right.
Who, again, like a Kevin Love, in the Hall of Very Good, but not a great, great player, but somebody you would want around if you're a young team and you're trying to put it together. So those guys can be had, and I think we've got to expand the search a little bit. The thing that really worries me, Rich, is if Cleveland offers the number 1 pick, that's an easy sell to your fan base. We have the number 1 pick. We can do whatever we want. And it kind of calms those people down in Minnesota if they even get worked up over the Timberwolves anyway. But if I get the indication that I need to bring someone here to satisfy Rondo, and if I can't, then it's my obligation to move Rondo and get something for the guy.
And that was Andy Gresh of the Sports Hub, 98.5 down in Boston, and also the Patriots Radio Network, talking, of course, about the Patriots, the Celtics, the Red Sox, and much more. Gresh, always entertaining, and we thank him again for his time back last week on Downtown with Rich Kimball. You're listening to the best of Downtown here on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket, for this Sunday morning edition. Still much more to come on this best of show, including Tim Whelan of the Metro West Daily News giving us a little scoop on the New England Patriots, and Kyle Draper of Comcast Sportsnet New England on the latest of the Kevin Love deal. But we'll take another break, and on the other side, we'll hear from new University of Maine basketball coach Bob Walsh as he's in his first month on the job. We'll get a little update on how the recruiting process is going and also his first month with the University of Maine and how that is for him so far. We'll be right back with much, much more here on the best of Downtown Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Best of Downtown, previously recorded edition of the program.
On your Sunday morning, June number 8, 92.9 The Ticket. Rich Kimball, Brian Stackpole had a chance to have our second conversation with the new Maine men's basketball coach, Bob Walsh, earlier this week. He checked in from Rhode Island, where he had just finished up his dynamic leadership conference. He's been a busy guy since taking the job, adding to the roster, adding coaches to the staff, and just already we're impressed with his spirit, his attitude, his infectious personality. We talked with him about establishing coaching values for both young coaches and veterans.
I don't know if it's that tough to tell the school that or the administration that. I think where the pressure comes and where it's hard is with your players. You have certain ideas and philosophies and, as you said, non-negotiables. But when you take over, I know when I first took over at Rhode Island College, my first year, there were some things that I tried that I really thought would be great that didn't work. And it is easy to see where you start to doubt or you start to change or maybe you start to bend a little bit. And the higher the level, the more the money is. I mean, it's really grown to an incredible level at the highest level these days. There's pressure to win right away. And you certainly see where guys can sort of start to bend a little bit and say, all right, let's start thinking short term instead of long term. And it's something you really have to work on every day to make sure you don't fall into that trap.
We're talking with Bob Walsh, the coach of men's basketball at the University of Maine. You've been busy putting your roster together, and a couple of key additions in Aaron Calixte and Kevin Little, and then the return of Sean Lawton. Nice to get those three into the fold, and certainly makes you a better team right from day one.
Yeah, we hope so. We're excited about them. Sean is a guy who I know the people that coached him and people that have been around him before he got to the University of Maine, and he never really left. He did ask for his release, and he was granted that. But we had some really good conversations when I first took over and got up to Orono and did a lot of research. And it's really a credit to him with, the way he handled himself with his teammates and the people around school and did a good job academically. We're excited to have him back. And then, we needed to fill a couple of scholarships, and we got a couple of guards in Kevin Little and Aaron Calixte that, quite honestly, we didn't want to just take space fillers. It was okay if we had all open scholarships if we didn't think we found guys that would fit our culture and help us build towards the championship. But we got two guys there in the freshman class that we feel like we can do that with. And I think we would have taken them a year ago at the University of Maine. These aren't guys that we're taking just because they're available. They're guys we're taking because we think they can help us win a championship.
You've also added to your staff. Tell us a little bit about the backgrounds of guys you've known very well in Matt and Zach.
Well, Matt's the first guy I ever hired as a coach. He was my first assistant at Rhode Island College, spent 3 years with me and really helped us build a championship culture there. And he challenged me every day. Matt thinks about the game intensely. He's really intelligent, really has a passion for it. He would show up every day with different ideas and different thoughts and things that I hadn't thought about that challenged me to be better. And then got great experience for 6 years at the University of Vermont. Really well-rounded, as is Zach. Zach is a young guy, really intelligent, really hardworking, thinks about the game in a lot of different ways. Both of those guys will make me better. They already have. I mean, they were the two key guys when it came to getting Calixte and getting Little on board. Their experience is going to be really valuable to us, and they'll be great additions to our program.
What do you like so far about the job and the university?
I love the energy. Every day I'm on campus, I'm more and more excited about it. The passion that people have for university, the positive vibe on campus. Everybody's happy and everybody's excited. And of course, I know I'm the only undefeated coach on campus right now, so that could change. But there's just great energy on campus, in the Bangor and Orono area, in the state of Maine, amongst the high school coaches. I just feel a great energy, and they're really hungry for something that I think we can build. So I really love that. And I think, the leadership, Carlton Creech, is really has a great vision for athletics at the University of Maine and what can be done. The other coaches are phenomenal. I've had great conversations with, Steve Tripper and Coach Cosgrove and Red Gendron, and talking about Richard Barron, about what you can do there and what's possible and how excited they are to be there. So there's just a great energy around campus, and I love it.
What's the biggest challenge that you'll face in the next couple of months?
Building trust with my players, I think, is takes a lot of time, and that's always a challenge. And getting to know them. You know, the day I first showed up on campus was the day before most of them left for the summer. So pulling it together and developing trust. Trust is a big part of our program, and that takes time. So getting to know my players and building trust with them, I think, is going to be a challenge.
So what's your summer like? You've got camps, I'm sure. What else is going on for you and the program?
Yeah, we have a camp coming up actually in a couple of weeks, which we're excited about. Believe it or not, I think we've got over 50 kids signed up already. I think June 22nd we start that. So we've got to put the rest of our staff together. We've got to map out the July recruiting period and figure out where we need to be. We'll be pretty for the better part of 3 weeks in the month of July. So, that's going to be a focus. And then, I do have to remember, to get settled and, everything that's, in my house right now in Rhode Island has to get packed up and moved up to Maine, so I've got to do that also.
And that was Maine men's basketball coach Bob Walsh talking about his first couple of weeks and first month on the job at the University of Maine men's basketball program. You're listening to the Best of Downtown for this 8th day of June 2014. Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Of course, your home for NBA championship coverage right here on 92.9 FM. No reason to turn your dial from right now up until the end of the night. So keep it right here and locked to Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. We'll take another break in this Best of Downtown edition, and on the other side, we'll hear from our friend Tim Whelan, making his first appearance on the show, talking a little New England Patriots football in the offseason. His OTAs and workouts got underway earlier in the week. We'll ask him on how the Patriots are looking and shaping up as we enter the early parts of summer. That and much more still ahead. Best of Downtown rolling on here on Sports Radio 92.9.
Tell me that you've got everything you want, and you're back and sing, but you don't get me.
Back on Downtown on a beautiful Sunday morning. Best of Downtown, Rich Kimball, Brian Stackpole with you. Stack, we've been on a good run of first-time guests who are absolute surefire keepers in our ever-growing stable of contributors, and we had another one on Friday with Tim Whelan.
Yeah, Tim, I just found he had been retweeted by a couple other people in the Boston market, and he was just always so funny every single time I saw it. So I followed him, read some of his stuff. Great read, too, in the Metro West Daily News, and just decided to reach out. And again, another great interview.
Yep, he covers the Patriots for the Metro West Daily News, and we talked with him about the team on Friday.
Definitely. One big upgrade right there with Dominic Easley with their first-round pick. A lot of people thought they would go D-line, and they did. And then you look in the defensive backfield. That's really what they focused on improving. They looked at, who knows how much they were looking at the Seahawks as a model, but after watching that Super Bowl, it's hard not to see them as a model. You want big, physical defensive backs, so that really helps you out. And you just look at, with Brady's window, how many people mention that and how many think that he needs to add these big offensive weapons. But really, you look at how they did it in the early part of this century, and it was defense first and, strong running game and pick your spots on offense.
Yeah, you did a great job of breaking down some of the receiving numbers in their more successful years, and they haven't always needed to have a guy go out and catch 110 passes a year to have an effective offense.
Right, not even half that sometimes. You had 2003, I think it was Deion Branch leading the team with about 56 catches, I think I said, and David Givens in 04 with about 57. So, it just... it looks like, they had, at that time, they also had Corey Dillon, who they called Clock Killing Corey Dillon, so he was able to really grind out yards, and the defense was filled with guys who were going to be lined up for, the Red Jackets in the Patriots Hall of Fame. Ty Law just got in, and you have Brewski already got in, and McGinnis, so it's really about now with this defense establishing its own identity, and with the pieces, if they can, the big if they can stay healthy, Gerard Mayo, coming back from his pectoral injury, Vince Wilfork, who's been out there at OTAs, even in limited action. That's another big if, but he's really an X factor, I think, this year, if he can give them something.
What does the signing of James Anderson do this week? Is that give them depth, or is he a guy who can be out there a whole lot of snaps and make a big difference?
He can make a huge difference. I'm not exactly sure why he hung around so long in free agency. He was, after being cut by the Bears, it was really a cost-cutting move, but he led the Bears in tackles last year. He's a steady vet. Mayo is kind of the elder statesman on that linebacking core, but you have Anderson, who basically Luke Kuechly down in Carolina credits with a lot of his success. So I think it's more than a depth add. I think he'll be great for Dante Hightower. It's also insurance if Hightower, a lot of times the coaches will tell you, a lot of what Dante does, you don't see with the naked eye. You have to kind of wait to see him on film, because sometimes Dante Hightower, it's looked a little up and down. It wasn't this sure thing first-round pick out of Alabama. He hasn't always made the impact plays you're looking for out of that position, but a guy like Anderson could be a good mentor to him.
We're talking with Tim Whelan Jr., Metro West Daily News. Patriots talk here this afternoon. And in your conversation with the receivers, it was mentioned that having a good defense can also make the receivers better, too.
Oh, yeah. Julian Edelman really emphasized that. And he was quick. He kind of caught himself. He said, you had these great cornerbacks. Well, we had great cornerbacks last year, too. So it seems like with those players, if you ask them about an individual, they'll always kind of couch it and mention everybody. So, yeah, Edelman, but you're getting that from a lot of the guys. That Revis, if you see him out there, they don't even throw to his side. And that's just in practice. I think it'll only make the receivers better. And, if possible, I know this column from Sam Monson in Pro Football Focus notwithstanding, it could make Brady better, seeing Darrelle Revis every day in practice.
Well, Amendola had some moments last year where he looked terrific, but just not on the field enough and not able to get the kind of production they'd hoped for. Are they still committed to him?
They are. I mean, a lot of it's a money thing. They were on the hook for a lot of money if they let him go, but I think he deserves a second year. I think no one knows his own, what's said about him a lot more than him, and I think it can be a sensitive subject for him. This is his livelihood, so it could be a sensitive subject for anybody. But I think they are committed to him. When he's out there, he is a tough player, and he really can make plays. And year one in the Patriots system, you look at veteran receivers coming in, really not since 2007 has a veteran receiver come in and had a lights-out year in the first year. And there were three guys that year. There was Moss, Welker, and Stallworth. But you look at Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco at the time, Joey Galloway in 2009. They cut him after 3 games. He couldn't get on the same page. Even Brandon Lloyd, he had 72 catches in 2012, but I think he only caught about 56% of the balls thrown his way. So, and it takes a while, I guess, to pick up this offense, and that's what we're seeing with Brandon LaFell as well. Sorry, that's a little bit.
And he mentioned that he's still trying to wrap his head around the playbook, and that's we've seen that. We saw it with Ocho Cinco, certainly, that can be a huge challenge for some of these guys who come in.
It can be, and I think that's what LaFell is trying to master right now. Although he had a great, they did some red zone offense yesterday, and he had a great catch in the back of the end zone. You can't look at one play. It's not even mini camp yet. This is OTAs. But, and the guys aren't even wearing jerseys. I don't know if you knew this, that they wear T-shirts, and they'll practice on the far field, so we have to, use the binoculars and check out their, jersey number on their shorts or helmet. It's pretty funny. But, he's a guy that could really help them out, but recent history isn't quite, he's not a guy you should expect to go in there. I compared him to a third or fourth starter on a baseball team. You can't rely on him for the bulk of the workload. You just have to hope that he can contribute when he's in there, because his career high is 49 catches.
And that was some New England Patriots talk with Tim Whelan of the Metro West Daily News, as he talks all things New England Patriots, some OTAs, and much more here from downtown with Rich Kimball last Friday. You're listening to the Best Of here for the Sunday morning edition. We do the Best Of show every single Sunday from 7 to 8 a.m. in the morning, and we're always happy to have you alongside with us, because we enjoy bringing these great interviews from the past week that was to you every Sunday morning. We'll take another break here, and on the other side, we'll hear from Kyle Draper of Comcast Sportsnet New England. He'll talk about the Kevin Love situation, the Boston Celtics, how they're looking, and what they might do in the upcoming draft at the end of the month. That and much more here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket, still to come here on the Best of Downtown.
Feeling my way through the darkness, guided by...
Tis the Best of Downtown for Sunday morning. Rich Kimball, Brian Stackpole. From Seasons Main Street in Bangor, 92.9 The Ticket, 92.9theticket.com. Join us tomorrow afternoon. We'll look back at the Major League Draft. Our friend Chris Hatfield of SoxProspects.com will join us. We'll also talk television with Boston Globe's TV critic Matthew Gilbert, who ought to be nominated for Emmys this year. It's in the hands of the voters right now. Nominations will be announced very soon, and we'll check in with Matthew on that and more on the Monday edition of the program. Earlier this week, we talked some Celtics with a guy who's rapidly becoming one of our favorites when it comes time to talk the Boston Celtics. He's Kyle Draper. You know him from Comcast Sportsnet New England. And we asked him if the C's will be a more enjoyable team in 2014-15.
You're right about that. I mean, that's what happens when you lose 57 games and you're trying to blow up the roster and rebuild. And you're mentioned with big names like Kevin Love, and there's that Carmelo Anthony thing somebody threw out there. And so as a basketball fan and a guy that covers this team, I'm excited, and I wanted to come to a conclusion, though. You know, I'm like, let's make a deal already. Let's get this thing moving. Absolutely.
Well, let's start with the latest news out of Minnesota. Flip Saunders appointing, Flip Saunders as the head coach. What does that do for Kevin Love, and does that increase the odds at all of him coming to Boston or at least getting out of town?
I think in Flip Saunders' mind, it increases the likelihood that Kevin Love stays. Now, I don't know if that's actually the case or not, but you got to think Flip would not install himself as head coach if he didn't think that he could somehow convince Kevin Love, hey, stick with me on this. We're going in the right direction. I'll be your coach. I've coached Kevin Garnett. I've coached Stephon Marbury. I've been to the playoffs 8-9 seasons, and so I know what it takes. And so, you know, they came out the other day and said that, there was the report that nothing would be done until they installed a new coach. Well, now it's Flip Saunders. And so I think Flip looked at the landscape and realized that there wasn't anybody really that he could get that could convince Kevin Love that maybe he has the best opportunity to do that. And so that's why he installed himself as head coach.
Well, now, after the visit to Boston over the weekend, all kinds of rumors, some people suggesting that maybe this was already a done deal. Others, I think even Cedric Maxwell, saying that had nothing to do with the Celtics. He was just visiting the city to see how things go. I suspect the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I think of it as, the way I'm reading things and is that Kevin Love has a handful of cities that he would go to, and Boston is on that list. He already knows about Oakland and San Francisco and Golden State. He may already know about Houston, Chicago. And he came out and said that he doesn't know a whole lot about the city of Boston. And if he's open to coming to the Celtics, why not go out there and check out the city? And so, I mean, if you're a Celtics fan, no doubt it's encouraging, but I wouldn't read into the fact that this is, definitely going to happen, definitely going to get done just because a guy spent a weekend here.
Now, what about Carmelo Anthony? Anything to those rumors? And do you think he'd be a good fit for the Celtics?
Well, I'm a Carmelo Anthony fan. I think he's gotten a bad rap throughout his career as just a me guy. I mean, he really hasn't been surrounded by quality talent and another superstar on his team. And so I think if you do pair him with a Kevin Love and a Rajon Rondo, he wouldn't have to take 20, 21 shots a game. He could take 16, and his game would be so much more efficient. He'd have a strong point guard who could get him the ball in the ultimate, the prime positions to score. And so I think throughout his career, he hasn't had that. And people talk about his, playoff experience and coming up short in the postseason. Let's be honest. He hasn't been on any team, really, that is expected to make noise in the playoffs. It's not like, he's been, a number 1 seed or a number 2 seed and didn't show up. His teams just haven't been good enough. Regarding Carmelo to the Celtics, I'm not buying that just yet. Because if you think about it, he controls his own destiny. And if he wanted to go play with 2 other great players, why not go to Chicago and play with a Derrick Rose who's supposed to come back healthy and a Joakim Noah? Maybe the Houston Rockets get in on the mix. And they already have 2, all-star pieces, both in Chicago and Houston. And so this rumor that started, it sent Celtics Nation into a frenzy. I just don't see it happening. Although I'm a Carmelo fan, I think it's a pipe dream to see him here in Boston.
Kyle Draper, CSNNE, with us here on Downtown. Now, today, a couple stories coming out that Danny Ainge has approached some teams about maybe trading up. I suspect, of course, he would do that because Ainge is a guy who likes to cover all the bases.
Yeah, no doubt about it, especially if you're not that enamored with the number 6 pick. Let's say you want to trade up to package that pick as part of a a Kevin Love trade, or maybe you just want to trade up because you're a big fan of Parker Wiggins or Heat. And so when the Celtics got that 6th pick, to me, that's sort of in no man's land. You'll get a good player, but you're not going to get a franchise changer. And I don't even know if the top 3 guys are that. They have the most potential. And so if I'm Danny Ainge, you got $1 billion draft picks over the next 5 years. Why not try and package some picks and move up to get one of those top 3 picks? And so, that's what Danny Ainge should be doing, especially you look at that number 6 pick, Rich. You're talking about probably drafting another forward, whether it's a Randall or a Vonleh or Gordon, somebody like that. And you got a lot of forwards already on your roster. And so that's not necessarily a position of need. So why not try to move up to get one of those wing players or even an Embiid to plug up the middle? And so if I'm Danny Ainge, you're just doing your due diligence trying to move up.
Does the potential Kevin Love deal have some bearing on Rajon Rondo's future in Boston?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would think that if the Celtics were closer towards contending for a title, it would be easier for Rajon to re-up here in the city of Boston. But think about it. If the fireworks don't happen this season or at the trade deadline and Rondo goes into free agency, an unrestricted free agency, who's to say Houston won't come calling for him? And you got Dwight Howard and James Harden. And so if you really believe that Rajon Rondo is part of your future, and if you're Danny Ainge, you want to keep him here, it's imperative that you go out there and surround him with some talent sooner rather than later.
Is Brad Stevens a real draw, not only for potential trade targets, but for free agents?
I don't know about all that. You hear all that. And, college guys know who he is and players know who he is. But the problem with Brad is he's done extremely well on the college level. He still has to prove himself on the NBA level. And it's a whole different ballgame. And when you talk about the best coaches in the NBA, you're talking about Popovich. Who wouldn't want to go play for him? Doc Rivers, another legendary coach. And so, to me, those are the kind of coaches that draw free agents, draw players. Brad Stevens, he may get there. I don't know if he's there right now where he can, just because he's the coach, teams now want to consider him, players now want to consider him. I still think he has a ways to go. He has to prove himself in the NBA before that happens.
And that was Kyle Draper of Comcast Sportsnet New England talking about a potential Kevin Love deal. The Boston Celtics, what they might do with the trade of the picks. Will they move up? Will they keep it? Who will they draft? Still a lot of question marks involving this Boston Celtics squad moving forward for this upcoming 2014-15 season. But at least I can say this with somewhat of a confident air about it. I think they're going to be improved from last year, or at least a little bit more watchable than they were in the 2013-14 edition of the Boston Celtics. We'll take our final break in this Best of Downtown edition, and when we come back, we'll wrap everything up from this edition of Best Of, and we'll also preview what's to come for the weekday edition of Downtown with Rich Kimball, which you can hear, of course, 4 to 6 p.m. weekdays right here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. That's still to come here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and the Best of Downtown.
Getting set to pack it up here for a Sunday morning Best of Downtown show. Thanks for being with us this morning, and thanks to those who graced the show this week. Head coach of the Dallas Mavericks, Rick Carlisle, Andy Gresh of Comcast Sportsnet New England, Maine basketball coach Bob Walsh, Tim Whelan of the Metro West Daily News, and Kyle Draper of Comcast, who talk Celtics with us. Coming up on the program tomorrow, Chris Hatfield, SoxProspects.com. We'll look at those Red Sox draft choices. We'll check in with Matthew Gilbert, the TV critic of the Boston Globe, and talk about potential Emmy Award nominees and whether or not that could include a couple of Mainers, Timmy Simons of Veep and Caitlin Fitzgerald of Showtime's Masters of Sex, both expected to be strong contenders for Emmy Award nominations this year. Movie reviews from Alan Adams of The Main Edge, latest on the Red Sox as well, and the NBA and NHL playoffs too, along with Steve McKay's weather. We'll do it tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock here on 92.9 The Ticket. Dale Duff and Clem Labrie start your morning off at 6 a.m. with the morning pitch tomorrow. We'll see you at 4. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll catch you on Mondays downtown on 92.9 The Ticket.
Linger on the sidewalk where the neon signs are pretty. How can you lose? The lights are much brighter there. You can't forget. forget all your troubles.